when we talk about SailPoint actually, right? And SailPoint doesn't exist on its own actually. Okay, it's not a standalone. We also call it as a silos component. It's very much like sits in the middle of everything actually. Okay, and just to understand what we are talking when we talk about SailPoint. So you have an operating system actually, right? Now everyone knows operating system, whether it could be Windows, whether it could be Linux actually. Now on top of that, we are going to have, um, we call it as actually, okay. So here, and within the operating
Hi,
system,
Sayed. You are recording this section?
no, I'm not recording. So let's,
Okay,
I'm just
because
trying to give an actually overview of what is SailPoint actually, right? Especially for people who are from a different background actually, right? From a completely new background. Okay.
okay.
And I'll share it. Don't worry on that. Let me just give an introduction of what is SailPoint. I know people hear SailPoint, and then they think that it's just like a .NET or any kind of standalone application. So you have to install Java on top of your operating system, right? Then you have we call it as actually application server. Okay. And have you heard about application server? So Tomcat is a very famous. It's basically it's not an application; it's a web server. But just for sake of WebLogic is one of the very famous application server. Okay, they have actually. So we'll just take whether it's in Tomcat or WebLogic just for the sake of conversation actually. And then on top of it, you have SailPoint deployed actually. Now I see because when we talk about um, SailPoint, people very confused between what is happening and believe me, sometime even when I take interviews um, and when I ask that hey, where the SailPoint exists, they say they're installed on the operating system, so people have no idea, okay, whatsoever where is SailPoint and how the SailPoint actually integrates with different system. Now you see, now we have a SailPoint. Now let's start how the SailPoint works. So you are going to have, and I'm making it different. So let's take an example for SailPoint as SharePoint actually. Okay. So SharePoint, you can integrate SailPoint with SharePoint. Okay. Then take about a remedy. Okay. Um, take about a remedy system, or take what do you say? ServiceNow. Have you heard about ServiceNow? Anyone?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So ServiceNow is a ticketing tool actually. Okay. Now, okay. Now then actually you can integrate with Active Directory. Okay.
Active Directory, Epic, Salesforce.
Exactly. So you now you actually you got it but you need to understand how it works actually and then so let's say Salesforce actually. No, why actually all these component gets actually integrated actually? What is the reason why we actually integrate these service now or what is the reason why do we integrate
Main
all
reason
these
is
different
security. Security, we can maintain security.
no, that is a very broad statement definition. I'm looking for some low level actually.
Okay, to grant access.
Yeah, one of the definition. But actually start why do we need actually, right? So think about we normally we have we call it as a provisioning of users actually. So let's say you could create a user. So let's say you have a user, Okay, I will say Satya. Okay, so I created Satya here at SailPoint. Now I want Satya to be created everywhere. Okay, all the access will be driven from Satya. Okay, so I could give access to Salesforce to Satya, ServiceNow, SailPoint, and Active Directory. Now think about from an onboarding perspective and offboarding perspective, right? From an onboarding perspective, um, you could actually create and it will kind of percolate to different systems. Now think about when actually I'm offboarding Satya. If I go and I disable, I'll just go and actually disable Satya from here, right? I go and actually disable Satya. Now what will happen? Just at one click, okay, all your services, all your different access will also get disabled. So you don't have to individually go and disable users within actually these different systems. Now that is one of the I think you guys have answered it but I mean this is the low level actually. I mean why do we use the SailPoint and all these identity managers, right? They're very expensive. They are not uh, you know they're very very expensive, I can tell you, right? A minimum tool for maybe a hundred of users and it could cost on $50,000, okay, on a yearly actually, right? And to maintain and to have different guys supporting it, it's a very expensive tool actually. Okay, not everyone uh, can actually have it in their infrastructure. But one of the reason actually you say, right, when actually the organization is big, they want to have tools like SailPoint so that they can manage users across different um, applications actually, so that they don't have to go. Now one is actually that I'm just mentioning it here, centralization. Okay, that's very important. Now the second is um, compliance actually. Now, why do you do that? Like, and I mean, I don't care, right? Even if I can go. Now, the reason happens, I can tell you. And this is if anyone, like especially Pallavi, if you can provide some insight, why compliance comes into the picture? Why SailPoint or any other identity management tool gets utilized because of the compliance? What is the reason behind it?
Maybe they want to keep an eye on accesses provided on CID data. If there is any breach to that, cross-border accesses.
Yes, that's also good, but that's more of a monitoring perspective, and that's also very, very well actually touches that. Um, okay, so compliance is think about, right. Let's say you are a service based, right, company, okay, and you have different projects. So let's say Satya is working on a Samsung project, okay, and Samsung is building, let's say any new very competitive feature uh, future um, for let's say for next year launch actually. Okay, now what happens is, and they want to keep it actually secret, and that's the reason they employ all these tools actually, right, so that they can manage who gets access to the tools they are using it actually. Now think about Satya actually is getting rolled off, let's say at end of this month actually, right, Jan. Now, after Jan, he actually joins Apple, correct? Now, and then he goes to Apple, and then he still has access to Samsung applications, right? And then actually he goes to, sorry, actually I'm just using as a name actually Satya. And then Satya, maybe he is exposed to what is already being developed at Samsung, and then what happens when he goes to Apple, he can actually use the functionalities that Samsung is actually developing, and still if he has access throughout when he is there in Apple, Apple people could actually see. and what is being developed on the Samsung side of it, right? Even actually they could re-plan their effort of the functionality. So from a compliance perspective, right? From a compliance perspective, it's very mandatory, right? It's mandatory that that the moment Satya, so think about, right? So this is August, sorry, Jan 31st is where actually Satya's roll off is from the project. Make sure that his access gets disabled, okay? January 31st, so that when he joins on actually first on within Apple, um, there should not be any kind of conflict, right? And who ensures that actually? It's a SailPoint. So you within SailPoint you can go and you can even set a date actually. Okay, when you set a date, it will disable your access without any manual intervention actually. Okay, so the moment you have 31st business day, end of the business day, it will disable it actually. So that is why we don't rely on the manual actually. I know there are a lot of companies still they are doing the manual effort where actually when a company goes, they will go in the Active Directory, they will disable it, or they have some tools actually, right? But not all application accesses will be disabled at the same day. Okay, if you are relying on the manual process. But if you're using a tool like SailPoint or Identity Manager, it will be disabled by default actually. Okay, that makes sense actually. And monitoring is obviously like another thing that 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 was actually monitoring. So think about, right? Now think about again that guy actually who joined Apple and he was still getting access, and he did. So think about, right? I had some data within Salesforce. Okay, I downloaded it and I took it, right? Now company, there's a breach actually. That guy was not supposed to take any data from the company system, but he took it anyway, isn't it? So how do you show to the auditing team that that the person, the wrong person actually took some data from the system, so that actually you can see it from the log, you can tell at this particular time he logged in and all these logging and everything you can see it right away. Okay, everything you'll be able to view it within the SailPoint, the logging and everything. We'll see it in the details actually. So that is these are three major points why do we use tools like Identity Manager like SailPoint. Okay, any question on this? I mean, is it clear why you're using it?
Yeah, it is clear. One more thing. So if you disable email access, so everything is like discontinued, right? So any application without email ID, there is no application working, right? So if you disable
See, sometime
your email ID in Active Directory,
see you will disable email actually, but the problem is the access actually to all these applications are not actually governed by the email actually. So there's no validation as such, right? So think about you have Exchange, Microsoft Exchange actually, right? And you disable the email. Yeah, he will not be able to receive emails actually unless that Active Directory. So I'm talking about there is a there's an exchange system. There's a mail, right? We call it as a mailbox. Think about mailbox. So this mailbox has to be integrated, and it's generally it's integrated with Active Directory, right? So when
mm-hmm.
you disable a mailbox, okay, which is so the way it works, right? You disable a user in Active Directory, okay, which in turn disable your mailbox, but there's also a sync that has to go to the SailPoint actually to disable it. Otherwise, what will happen? Service now access, although like the user ID, okay, is your email address, but there is no connection between if you disable just here, he will still be able to actually access it because he can utilize email address and password, isn't it, to access it,
Okay. Okay, got you.
right?
Yep, yep.
I mean, you have a very valid point, but yeah, if you do it in an efficient manner, but how actually like this application is going to be integrated with the mailbox system, and that is what we are talking about. SailPoint does that actually, right? So what will
Yeah, yeah,
happen? I can tell you what will
I got
happen.
you.
Let's say,
One more thing here. So we need to remove each person who left the company. So we have to remove that person in each application because we are paying money for every month. We are paying for that user usage, right? So if you delete that person in that application, so we are saving a lot of money to organization. So these are so
exactly,
valuable.
exactly. That's also one of the, yep. Cost saving actually. You also correct
Yeah.
like based on, but cost saving is also like that if a person goes actually, but again the cost saving comes actually like at a later priority, but more important is the compliance perspective. So if so think about, right, if Samsung catches a service company like anyone, like let's say it could be TCS, Infosys, anyone, that an employee, he has access to both Samsung and Apple, right? Obviously, like that would be a breach of trust actually, first of all. Correct. And you could be sued like in millions. Forget about like less money. They could actually like and then think about like there are a lot of other projects dependent. That's all basically about the trust. Correct. And that's that is if you for an organization, SailPoint or any IDM tool is actually like it's of prime importance. So let's say when you work with SailPoint, think about that you are sitting, okay, in the middle of an organization, okay. So think about that actually, right? All accesses, even the database. So there was there was a day where a database guy was very important, right? I mean, we used to maintain very good relationship with database person. Now, everyone like tries to maintain a very good relationship with an identity or access management person because that guy actually can and has access to different applications, and if he can resolve, he knows like people from different teams actually, right? So he's a kind of go-to person for any kind of information. So think about, right? He could give you a person names actually who works with Salesforce, right? If you are trying to do something like between SharePoint and Salesforce. I'm just saying like from the importance of thing actually. Okay. Now, um, do you know any other tool in the market other than SailPoint competitors? So before SailPoint, actually, Oracle Identity Manager. Okay, this is also like but it's because of since actually Oracle is this is also very it was kind of like you can say it's zenith actually, okay, a lot of people, and it's also a very good tool, but little bit like complicated actually, but it has Oracle Identity Manager is one of the, but you need to actually like deploy, it's very heavy, okay. So this is like and most of the identity works in the same manner, but yeah, the functionality wise it could be different, like so you can, this is this is the Oracle Identity Manager. Then go to Savient actually, a cloud-based tool actually. Okay, and it's you know people are trying to utilize this. It's also like just to understand. I mean, I know like this, but based on you guys are the look experience, and it's like you should be aware of like all these tools actually. Savient is, so if you see here, Savient is an industry leading provider of cloud security and identity governance solution. Okay. And you see, it's seamless platform with Office 365, Azure, Salesforce, Enterprise, SAP, and all those things actually, right? Last actually, there's a ForgeRock actually. Okay, ForgeRock. These are the competitor of SailPoint. Um, they also good tool actually. So ForgeRock actually, digital identity actually. One of the thing that you see, Gartner's. Go to Gartner's. Yeah. So if you see here, and you see like other competitors. Yeah, you see here, and this is of the, I believe it's in the last year. You see here. Can you see my screen actually?
Yep.
You see
Yes, yes.
SailPoint is the leader actually. Then comes the Savient. There's an IBM. They also have IBM Tim Tam. We call it as a team. Tivoli Identity Manager. There's an Omada, one identity. You see, Oracle used to be on the top actually. Okay. The reason is like, I mean, I can tell you like in the last one year, 1 to 1 year back, actually, like they used to be the leader. The reason actually SailPoint and all that, they're innovating, they're making the application very, very light actually. Okay. And all these actually just to be aware of like, that the landscape, like, if you're trying to get into the SailPoint domain, right, or identity manager. Okay. Now, the other question, like, I started when Satya and I was trying to do that, right? So if you see this clearly tells you identity governance and administration, right? So this is all about managing your identity. Okay, so whenever a user joins within the organization, okay, you create the first thing. What do you do? What do you create for first thing? Tell me. What is the first thing that you create? Email address, right?
Email address.
Okay. So
ID.
that email address, yeah, that email address triggers an ID. We call it as an identity. Okay. An identity could be email address or could be a username. So typically, I have seen in the financial, okay, domain, what happens? They don't use email address as an identity. Okay, an ID. They use something different. Something maybe even they could pick a random, so that from a hacker perspective it should not be identifiable, right? So they'll use something else. I don't know about you guys, what is that that you use it, whether you use email address as a ID, but from a convenience perspective, people tend to use email address as an ID. Okay, for a secure perspective they'll use something else actually. Okay, now nowadays actually I can tell you, like, a company which is you wants to be compliant, right? Whether it's a person, whether it's a laptop, whether it's any kind of hardware resource, we call it as an IT resource. Identity is mainly like, we used to identify a person, a living person. IT resource is something like, the laptop, computer, even actually um, a room actually. Okay, so everything within an organization, everyone has a unique ID so that you can identify. The reason being is, think about like, you are trying to bring a hard disk within an organization, right? At any particular given point of time, you should be able to trace it, that who owns that hard disk, or sorry, USB drive, or a laptop, or think about like, a person, right? You should be able to identify a person where he is actually, right, at this point, where in which project he is working, right? So everything like, you can maintain within this identity manager, also known as identity governance actually. Everything like, you can map it, right? You can map it. So typically what happens is, now going to so let's say a person joins actually, right? So think about when a person joins actually. Okay, so this is an employee actually. When the employee joins actually, what happens is, okay, he will get access to SailPoint, and we call it as identity manager. Okay, IDM will say it. Okay. Now you see here, so this guy, he will get access to SailPoint. Now what will happen within SailPoint, what are the capabilities that will have access to? Okay. So he will have typically access to, he should be able to go, okay, and let's say he needs a laptop actually. Okay. So he needs a laptop. So he should be able to raise a request for that laptop actually. Okay. And what will happen, okay, when you raise a request for the laptop, there could be there's an approval process that is attached to that. Okay. And this is like an approval process actually. So whenever you actually go and request it, it goes to an approval process actually. And within that approval process, it could be as per the approval process, first thing it has to be approved with from your manager actually. Okay, then it will go to an IT manager. Now after that is done, this is done, then only you will get assigned to, you will have, so after this approval process is complete, this is where you will get assigned. And all these things see whatever is happening, everything, okay, everything you will get notified. You will get notified that okay, that a laptop has been assigned to you. So you will know when actually you raise a request, you will know when actually it has been assigned to you. And at any given point of time, okay, you could go and you could actually see a list of, so it could be laptop, it could be mobile, okay, whatever has been given to you, you can go and look at it. Even your manager can go and look at it, that this guy has access to. So think about application. Think about applications, right? In a typical large organization, you could have access to hundreds of applications. Okay. Now maybe you would know why do we need to do manage laptop and mobile? But in a large organization, you typically have multiple applications actually. Okay. And this is the best way actually so think about, right, you are assigned to a, again going back the same analogy, okay, you have been assigned to to a Samsung project. When you are moving to a different project, your manager has to ensure that whatever okay accesses that you had with Samsung, okay, everything have been revoked actually, okay, at end of the day for that particular project. And how do you actually manage those things? This is how you manage, okay. And this list actually I can telling you, this could actually grow actually. So you typically you can go and see, and we'll go to once we know about how typically this works, right? And we'll be able to see. But this is the gist of what is SailPoint all about, and why do we need that, and what is the requirement, okay. So the challenges will be how do you understand different functionalities, different, how do you integrate with different pieces. But yeah, try to understand how SailPoint works actually, okay. Different organization, they could be using different component. So one person could be using Salesforce, other could be using Active Directory, depending on their business requirement. But yeah, if you understand as a product, then I think you're all good actually, okay. Any questions so far?
Hi Sayed, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
So in this training, how many integration you will show? in
Actually,
reality?
no, minimum actually two integration that I typically show within as part of the training.
What are they?
It depends on like, normally you will have an Active Directory. Okay. Then you have, so I'll pick up like, I mean, unless you have, because depending on what kind of thing, I'll let you know. But you have an Active Directory, you have an ODSC, you have, there's an Okta also, like, which I'm actually like, currently doing integration with an Okta application. So maybe that I'll try to show. The intent is like, to actually show like the inner workings of the SailPoint actually. Okay. Two, three, like, and I'll see like, what I have actually, but the way it works, like, there's a remedy ticketing system, right? ServiceNow,
Mm-hmm.
or you have Active Directory, OD, Oracle Directory Servers, Okta, three, four, like, that you will actually understand the process, the provisioning of users actually, right? That I'll show it actually. Okay. But before that, like in a SailPoint, you have to also install Apache Tomcat server. Okay, that is also part of the same thing. And I have like, more. This is again more of an introduction. I was not sure like, that people are, you guys will be joining it here, right? So we'll move towards a more a formalized part of training where actually all these things will be documented actually. Okay. I don't typically provide a recording because there are a lot of things I discuss that is not something like created by myself actually, right? I mean, I'm not, but I typically share a lot of things as part of the training actually, right? So which you will get like and the reason being is like I'll try to give you more which it's there in the internet or something like which I have with me. But yeah, that is not something like I claim that a lot of things I have not created myself, right? So when you do the recording, like it becomes that you have created everything, right? So, but again, like if you have 3 to 4 people, we make sure like that you have hands-on, you have understanding. Believe me, once you start this training, it is not simple, like I mean you will actually you will be exposed to different terminologies actually, and which is very confusing. Okay. So like and that's why like that not this is not actually very prevalent in the market, right? All these kind of training, because you need to have some kind of maturity level as well to understand and actually to learn this product. Okay. If you want to know, like so if you go to SailPoint, there's a videos. Okay, they have some videos actually, like how this typically works. Yeah, if you go to demo, CyberArk, like you know what is CyberArk?
I don't know.
So
What is that?
okay, CyberArk is like where it actually manages the privilege actually, so root access, admin access. So there's a different tool that comes, and you can integrate CyberArk with SailPoint and any user. So again, the same thing, right? So you can manage CyberArk user from SailPoint, right? You can push users from SailPoint to CyberArk. Okay. So let me just wanted to show you again. I'm using a different system, but I have my own system where I'm going to do see SailPoint CyberArk integration demo actually, right? I'll just show you with the yeah. So one thing I mentioned about, right? Let's go to Gartner. Okay. And since you guys are learning, right, people are going to ask you about whether you have experience with access management tool as well or no. Okay. Uh, so you should be aware of that tool as well, at least maybe not. So if you see here, so there is another. So you know what is access management, right? I think we were trying to discuss. So here, this is an access management. If you see, you have Okta as a leader. Then you have a Microsoft, Ping Identity, IBM, Oracle, and all that. So, so think about, right? So identity manager is all about managing identity. Access management is all about providing you access. So typically when you log into your Gmail account, right? What has happened? There's a first thing what happens. Tell me. What happens like in the first thing when you log in? Do you know? Anyone?
So Gmail account login or creating account.
Yeah, creating is a part of, you can say like, maybe no, login, doing the login actually, what happens. So when you log in, authentication happens. Authentication, right?
Yeah.
So what is authentication actually? So authentication is
You
all
verifying
about
the user,
username.
whether that user is valid or
Sorry, I think I'm not able to get Anil actually.
it will check whether that particular user is valid or not based on credential and that user.
Yeah, so it's valid. Yeah, so authentication is all about validating actually like this first like whether actually you have to validate whether that user exists in your system or not, right? And then you have to validate the password actually whether the password that user provided is matches with your or not. So that is authentication actually. Now there is another, okay. So Gmail, you will be authenticated, and by default, you will also have access to. So as this is the access to Gmail is given as per the policies actually. So this is an application, and you have defined that hey, this guy has access to Gmail actually. But think about like you could have another application called as G Suite. Have you heard about? Google
No.
Suite actually. Google Suite is like in a way they provide all the other applications, and this is more of an enterprise application. So typically, if you are a Gmail user, you have access to Gmail. But G Suite is something like where you will not have. So you have to define a policy to allow access to G Suite. Okay, as per the policy, you have access to Gmail actually. Okay. So authentication and authorization, these are part of access management. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. Access management actually. Okay. So we call it as access management actually. Okay. So this is access management. Identity management, I just explained you before that, right? So never confuse between and collectively it's called as identity and access management actually. Okay. But they are mainly there are three tools actually. One is identity manager, then you have access manager, then you also have directory server actually. Okay, so these are the three like you will be exposed to when you work, when you say IAM actually, and we call it as identity manager, access manager, and directory server. Okay, directory server is like where you store your users actually. So SailPoint doesn't store anything. SailPoint doesn't store anything within itself actually. Okay, so we use different databases, different user repository to store all the information that you find within the SailPoint actually. Okay. I know sometimes people, what happens is they will just learn, the how do you do things in a SailPoint. They never understand the architecture, and that is why they always struggle, especially while working, especially while doing the interview. Okay, because the interviewer sometimes they know actually that you might have got some training actually, right? But you don't know how the internal things work, and they will try to ask you from an internal things, how different pieces stitch together, right? How the flow happens. Okay, once you understand that, whether it's a SailPoint, Savient, or ForgeRock, you'll be able to like figure it out, you'll be able to like work through those components with much ease. All right. So as I said, I expect like everyone would have a laptop with minimum 8 GB of RAM. Okay. So before that, like again, I have actually like structured course actually where I go through like different terminologies within the SailPoint. What is SailPoint, and then like again, you guys are, since I understand everyone is, I take it as a beginner, right? So I'll try to like few things like maybe the thing that I mentioned, right, as an access management. I explained, though it's not part of the sale point, but you should be aware of like because typically when you go for the profile change actually, right, they ask about access management as well. So you should be able to differentiate between identity manager and access manager actually. Okay, and this is where like people catches you like whether you are from that background or not, whether you are working. Typically, a person working in this INM area, they will be able to differentiate between different product or different components, okay, within the framework.
If you like our videos, then subscribe to our channel and be a part of the journey with GoLogica and stay connected with the latest videos.